Well, the Irish wake kind of continues here this week for the city of Pawtucket.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Taco Comfort Solutions.
And what I mean by that is, as exemplified by the press conference that Mayor Grebien called yesterday, everyone's smiling, everyone's happy, but everyone's head is shaking horizontally about the shame of the loss. And that's what it was like. I will tell you, I must have spoken to, I don't know, maybe there were 100 people packed into a very warm Slater Mill Museum yesterday afternoon or late morning in Pawtucket. And everybody just did that. This didn't have to be. This didn't have to be. Do you believe this? This didn't have to be. This is the mover shaker community, obviously, and the Blackstone Valley contingent of leadership, mayors and the like. And everyone feels like this is I think there's still a shock factor of the idea that this thing got kicked away, meaning the Pawsox project headed to Worcester. Mayor Grebien has been stand-up through this entire process, and I think, and I've told you here and on the radio a number of times, and I don't give these accolades out just like candy, but I think he has exemplified the guy who wants to fight for his city. I think he did everything he could. We'll talk about what happened and what comes next momentarily. But first, the headline from yesterday at Slater Mill and Eyewitness News coverage.
As the Pawsox bat their last two seasons at McCoy Stadium, city and state leaders will be busy making the pitch for what will move into that public space.
We want to have that answer, but we're going to do that in a very timely fashion.
Pawtucket Mayor Don Grebien said at a news conference Wednesday that they're expediting a process of gathering input and looking at studies from a year ago to create a reinvestment plan by around October 4th.
Could it be a single A? Could it be a double A? We don't want to settle. We want to make sure that there's activity and we have the economic, because the difference with this stadium or the new stadium was the rehabilitation and the revitalization of our downtown.
Governor Gina Raimondo said she already called Jonathan Kraft to propose having his New England Revolution soccer team move in.
I think they're pretty committed to Boston, so it would be a long shot, but we'll try it.
Mayor Grebien said with the loss of the Pawsox comes about 20 full-time jobs at McCoy.
Yeah, well, that's just the beginning of the problem. Welcome.
Dan, always good to be here, even under the conditions of the circumstances.
There's no way in God's green earth you're bringing a single or double A team to the city of Pawtucket. That's not going to happen. So let's cut the nonsense. It doesn't happen. The Pawtucket could certainly, not the Pawsox, could waive their regional exclusivity. I know they're off the record bleeding about that right now. Mm-hmm. Nobody in the city of Worcester and the Massachusetts governor are going to tolerate any kind of cut-in to the reach that they made in Worcester. So let's put that to bed.
I don't know what was agreed upon in there, but yes, I would think you're absolutely right. If it was the shoe was on the other foot, you'd be doing that.
And by the way, the people who are upset about this they think Pawtucket's a better place than Worcester. They're not going to accept a lesser product.
No, and I agree with you, Dan. One of the things is because clearly we're not trying to, we want to make sure people, as we go through the vetting process and the grieving process and the loss of the AAA, listen, there were a lot of people that put a lot of hard work and time into getting it done or trying to get it done. We don't want to settle, but I don't think we also don't want to take anything off the table. I think that a lot of people are reacting to, the hype about what the Crafts are going to do. You see it on social media, talk about they haven't landed their home, they talk about that. I think that's a what if. You talk about a single A or a double A. A week or so before, we have the independent league owner who's saying that. So I think that's what's coming to it. I don't know what it becomes.
McCoy is rotting at the core. I don't care if you put the Boy Scout Little League team in there, you've got to fix the building, and the economics of a lesser product don't suffice to fix the building.
The only thing is, and this is, you're absolutely right, because we've always done the analysis on the AAA, right?
Right.
With the amenities. The question really becomes are the areas that are really lagging, can we demolish, can we change? So we're going to go through that. The one thing that the governor has done, and Stefan, Commerce Secretary have committed to us, is we're going to do that reuse feasibility study, or reuse study. And everybody hates the word study, we do too, there's enough out there. But what is the right use? It could be, right? I think that everybody's saying it could be a single A or a double A, right? We don't know if it makes sense. I agree with you. From a rights perspective, if you were Worcester or I was Worcester, you wouldn't be allowing that. You're absolutely right in that. So the question
It's
comes
not
in.
going to sell here, Don. It's just not going to sell here. Look. In another month or two, when you come back, but first of all, I don't think that you're acting like a beaten up child, I mean, listen, this is a tough divorce, and I appreciate that you keep yourself open to everybody's ideas and concepts. But I think right now the leadership that's required on this, that's not going to come from this governor, because she's been pathetic in my mind on this. Never mind the Speaker of the House who screwed this deal. Never mind the Senate President who watched it happen. Some tough love here. I think the smartest thing that you said yesterday is that we're still going to look to take over the Apex property, because that can't, if that stupid steeple or whatever the hell, that pyramid, whatever that ugly piece of garbage there is, if that remains as a memory of what could have been, you're DOA.
Absolutely. So, and we've recognized that.
So who knows what it could be?
Absolutely. We don't know, right? We know that we need to
The
get
next
control
Citizens
of
Bank
that.
move. It could be,
Absolutely,
a
right.
museum, an aquarium, amusement. I don't know what you're going to put in there, but you need to acquire that land and get that done, right?
So absolutely, there's no doubt about that. I said yesterday, I think to you and to others, Andrew Gates, my way is trying to build the owner. My way is always trying to build a relationship, right? And when we talked about purchasing or eminent domain originally, we didn't have the money. There is money now that's available because it's not going to be a ballpark. So there are options that we could utilize to make an offer on that. We needed to get the bonds. Having said that, at the end of the day, it's a gateway project. No matter where we get the dollars from, myself, I've met with some of the members of the council. We're meeting now. We know we have to have that. It's
we should slow down over that, because that's important. The gateway concept, given the S-curves there in Pawtucket, you come out of Attleboro, and the first thing you see in Rhode Island is the Apex thing. And you go, what is that? And people who know it's nothing going on there. So whatever you put there is got to be woo.
Right, absolutely.
Right, and the disappointment right now is the ballpark would have been woo, but it's not going to be the ballpark. So it's going to be a whoa. So that's what you mean by gateway.
I don't like using the woo.
Well,
it's too close to
geez, you know what? Right.
But other than that, we're good.
And state leadership better get that this is not just a city of Pawtucket bail. This is about the gateway to Rhode Island from the Northeast Corridor.
Right. And so those are the things that and I say this, the governor, I've had conversation with Secretary, I've had conversations with the President, I haven't had conversations yet with the Speaker, and we will, but that the commitment needs to be there that we do this jointly, right? This is a gateway. And we need to take that property control, hopefully by a purchase, right, for whatever it's going to be, because it is going to have that impact, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk real briefly here about the Apex thing? Because the Pawsox, with their guilt complex, have spent a little bit of time talking about, well, the deal wasn't right, which is true, and we couldn't get the property. The little bit of work that I've been able to do on this tells me that there was probably more to the story about your chances for success of wrapping that Apex property up by springtime. I don't think enough people in this state, understandably based on the privacy of the negotiations and the nuances of the ownership of the Apex building, which were not clean in terms of their negotiating ability, all of that kind of thing. Can you characterize what could have been on the timetable with the Apex building? Was it just an eminent domain option? And what will it be going forward?
So I think both options are the same. It is an offer. We have an appraisal on the property at one amount, and the ownership is saying it's at a different amount.
And you're way apart.
Correct. We were way apart, okay?
He bought it for 24, he wants 24.
Actually, no, in all honesty, the ironic thing of the story is that they got it under under eminent domain back in the 70s for $250,000.
Why am I thinking 20? Why am I thinking numbers in the 20 millions?
Somebody had put out there, he's never told us a specific number, but 24 is what had come out in some of the press down the line.
All right, so he's not 24 million into the project.
No.
All right. Will it end up being a smooth transaction, do you think, or is it going to be a forced takeover?
So I don't know, and I hope it's a smooth one. That's why I was mentioning, he called me yesterday, I owe him a return call. I am going to set up some time, we're going to sit with the attorneys. We would much rather have it a smooth takeover. Now that the grandeur of a baseball AAA, it's now about the city dollars and what we can do.
But the Pawsox management trusted, based on your private representations to them, that you would be able to acquire that property.
Yep.
A lot of people still think there was a dangling participle, and it was your management faux pas not to have that done early.
the reason we felt very confident that we could either get the deal done, even though we're apart, and if we couldn't get the deal done and it went by eminent domain, which nobody likes to talk about, that there's a time frame. Eminent domain is about price, never about acquisition of property. So it's always about the dollar amount. So there are cases out there, right? The owner has it recognized, in fairness, that he would have to be out as soon as I lay out a redevelopment plan, which would have to go be approved by the council, through PRA, through the council. Once that's approved, we can dispute on property. It's a 30-day notice that he would have to get out on the eminent domain. Again, we don't want to do that, but we had that. So the time frame issue was never really a concern.
Okay.
It's always on the price, Dan.
The deal from the House is what broke this thing, along with the aggressive position of the city of Worcester. When we
Okay.
come back, we'll talk about that reality, and then we'll talk about what goes forward for the city of Pawtucket. I got my own ideas. Stay with us.
I'm looking forward to them.
Confirm one more time how many times the governor, the Senate president, the House Speaker, the mayor, and the Pawsox city officials got together in one room to try to bang this deal out.
That clearly is a difference. We did it, we chose to do it in different reasons. We were never in the same room at the same time. That's fair, absolutely.
And notwithstanding the boatload of dough that Worcester put on the table, the Senate deal would have been accepted by the Pawsox, yes or no?
To the best of my knowledge, yes, yes.
So that was Mayor Grebien yesterday at a press conference after the formal affair. And, I asked him that question because I wanted to get it on the record, that leadership in this state never got in the same room at the same time to put this thing through. That's why you had such a bifurcated, broken system. So I went to the governor seconds later to ask her the same question.
Questions, Governor.
Yes.
Can you confirm the number of times you, the Senate President, the House Speaker, the Mayor, and Pawtucket Red Sox officials got together in a room to try to make this deal happen?
I have no idea. What I can tell you is I personally spent hundreds of hours on this, negotiating with all of those parties, and my Commerce Secretary spent, 10 times that. So,
When we
I don't
claim
know.
leadership, all the leadership never got in the same room
That
with
is
the
not
players.
true. That is not true. I had them in my office on more than one occasion.
The Speaker, the
Yes.
Senate President,
Yes.
you, the
And Larry
Pawsox,
Lucchino.
the Mayor, to put a deal together.
Yes, absolutely.
So you just said you didn't remember, and now I'm asking you
Said
again.
a number of times. I don't know if it was 1 or 2 or 5, but
The mayor just told me it never happened.
that isn't true. I specifically remember sitting at my desk.
We're back on.
Okay. So,
I feel for you, brother. I really do. I really do.
like, in fairness, right, and I say this, right, is you had the governor who negotiated a good deal, Senate President and the Senate who was worried about Pawtucket and gave back, and the $45 million was the best ever in AAA baseball, right? So everybody had the same common core to protect the taxpayers, right? Nobody wanted to exploit that. The Speaker did as well. They all had different pathways. I can tell you that, I've been in meetings with the governor and Stefan and the Pawsox. We've had meetings. I've never been in with the Senate President and the governor. Maybe the leadership, the governor and the Speaker and the Senate President have. I have not.
Look,
So when I say that, I mean, we all had the right, at the end of the day, we were all trying to do what was right.
Listen, I'm going to bail you out of this. I play it because people need to know it. I'm not doing your bidding here. I think you did everything you could. I mean, you can't walk in and say, hey, I want the governor, I want Mattiello, I want Ruggiero, I want Lucchino, and me in a meeting. You can't do that. You don't have the stature for that.
Agreed.
I mean, you could yell from the mountaintop about demanding it, and in the back rooms, you lose your equity. I get it. But it is the leadership of this state that fell down here. True, the governor was was at 45, 50 miles per hour down the highway on this thing the entire way. Although she did stop. There was a time when she said the deal wasn't ripe. But anyway, you get all this hearing process with the Senate. The Senate finally comes through. She supports it. We know Mattiello's got problems, that she doesn't either use her public or private bully pulpit to pull everybody in the room, to move her chips all in on this project and say, we're going to do this get in a room, we're gonna buy some beers and pizza, and we're not leaving here until everyone's on the same page. That's what the general public expects on a project of this importance. It didn't happen, and you and the people of Pawtucket and the state of Rhode Island suffered for it. And it is what it is. Your diplomacy, I think, is clear. These guys now have an obligation. These guys, meaning the state of Rhode Island, the administration, and the like, not to walk away. And I get that Raimondo showed up at your event yesterday. By the way, who asked who to that dance? Did she ask to come to your event, or did you ask her?
No, I asked her and the lieutenant governor to be there.
You
yes.
did?
Yes.
Why?
We worked it. Because in order to move
to pull
forward,
them in on a commitment.
Absolutely. We need to move forward, right? There's enough of blame to go around, as I said that, right? The blame is going to get no one. I need the governor support, lieutenant governor. I need the House and the Senate, right? Whatever the next steps are going to be. You know, people are out there outraged. Well, you know, why are you not telling the Pawsox off? Why are you not telling this one off? Listen, we've been the adults in the room, for lack of better terminology, right? And we've got to move the city forward.
Without a doubt.
So I'm not going to cut a relationship with Larry. Am I happy? No. Him and I will
By the
have
way, you
those
got to live with
conversations.
each other for 2 years. That's the ugly
Absolutely.
part of this whole thing. And that's
Right.
part of their, hey, you never know, the story's not over. I mean, they've got ticket sales. They had to factor in that this move to Worcester would be so significant for them that they could bear the burden of whatever the decline of attendance would be in McCoy for 2 years.
They've made that decision, and I would have to say, looking at as we start to understand the Worcester numbers, you know, see some of it, Worcester subsidized that to a degree that Rhode Island was never going to be able to.
You talked about transparency.
That
You
too.
took a shot at Worcester on transparency. I didn't think, I thought it was a fair shot. The difference is that they've passed this mostly through their on the record pass is through the council.
Yep.
You talked about a plan B at one point, just taking it home to the city of Pawtucket. Bang, bang, couple of public hearings, boom, we're in.
And at the end,
But you never took that route.
well, at the end, that's what the speaker did for us, but it was so late in the game, right? They were already well out in front of Worcester. We believed that there was an
the
opportunity.
speaker did it through enabling state legislation, though.
Correct.
I mean,
and that's where it should have started
But
to
there's
begin
no
with.
state, you see, in Massachusetts, there's no
No
state
state,
enabling
absolutely,
legislation.
correct.
You got Governor Baker going, yeah, I got you 35
Absolutely,
million
it's
in
different.
infrastructure, one side. And to their credit, and what I think understandably charmed the Pawsox ownership
Yeah.
and management, is that it was seamless, confidential, exclusive. That, you know, they never leaked until they went bang, and now they got 2 hearings to pass it. It seems like it's going to be a pretty smooth ship.
I would agree with you.
And they
President.
loved this. They loved that process.
There are 2 things I've been saying this consistently, right? It was truly the 38 studio saga. We had that. I mean, think about it 3 years ago, right? The Senate, everybody, we did all these public hearings.
Yeah, how's that governor's independent investigation on 38 Studios going? Have you
I
checked
don't know.
into that one?
No, I haven't checked
Oh,
on that
okay,
one.
good. Yeah.
So I got that one, but also the rollout from the Pawsox to the Providence move just created that animosity. So we had to overcome that. We overcame that by building a stronger relationship, you know, showing people that McCoy has some issues, you know, some significant, and we needed to move on. At the end of the day, it is the people of Pawtucket and the city of Pawtucket who's lost out, for whatever the reasons are, in this economic opportunity. We were never going to overextend Pawtucket, the state of Rhode Island. We had a great deal, you know, should have been accepted a year ago, absolutely. You know, 3 years ago and 2.5 years ago, I was arguing, that stating out there, yelling and screaming that we're going to lose them, and you know, the goalposts kept changing. At the end, we need to figure out together collectively, and that's going to take true leadership. You're absolutely right, to figure out what our next steps are.
Well, I think you've got enough studies and enough instinct to do a lot of the right things here. And in case you don't, I got my own idea. We'll tell you what it is when we come back. Stay with us.
If my mother were still alive, this is the advice she would give me. Larry, why don't you take your team where it's wanted, where they really very much support you and want to have this ballpark done? Go where you're wanted, not where there's controversy and disagreement and opposition.
That must have tugged at you because, you know, you invoked the mother. You know, Larry, come on, man, really? But I understand his point. They felt that. But they'll never be able to say that about the city of Pawtucket and you, and they don't.
And they haven't, no.
It's just that
absolutely.
what you needed was the state help, and you just got it too slow, too bifurcated,
And too late.
and too late,
Yeah.
right? So here's what I'm thinking. Knock off the single AA thing. By the way, the 1 or 2% chance that Worcester screws this thing up.
Yeah, but still
And
out there.
they could come back to you and say,
I mean,
would you be open to that?
You're never going to close that door. You know me well enough. I'll never close that. But I think that they've made their decision.
Yes, okay. Well, you never know what happens, you know. I think you acquire the Apex property in the best way, in the most affordable way you can do it. You build, I don't know what that gateway project is going to be, but you make something that's wow. You go ahead and you just take McCoy down and you build that municipal complex. You move the high schools together. Your education is going to be the thing that will help to save this city's future. You build the best high school sports community complex that you can on that site. You get City Hall the hell out of there,
Yeah, absolutely.
and you build that whole Slater Mill Park into its own Riverwalk around something that's attractive, and do it anyway. You can still do what Hoboken, New Jersey did for itself,
Absolutely.
and make it the place to be. But you got to like cut the cord and say enough of this, and no rehab for McCoy. It's coming down. It's the final chapter in this whole thing, and consolidate your whole municipal up there and make it the best in the state. And they'd have to help you finance that.
I agree, absolutely. And so the question is do we keep a part of McCoy for the history and use that as could we build our complex or our high school around that and use the
Call
ball
it
field?
McCoy Field. I don't care what you do.
To do that, because that's the sentimental
Keep the sign,
value.
but my God, I mean, no, seriously, because between Shea and Tolman,
the two high schools.
the two high schools, you'd win every Rhode Island Interscholastic League deal. I mean, they consolidate the talent, bring some pride in there.
It becomes, and that's, Dan, not to cut you off, sorry, and that's part of what we're trying to do over the next 30 days, and that was the lockdown and commitment from the secretary and the governor, is to understand that, right? We still got to go to the community, because I'm not sure the community wants to do one general high school, right? Because we still have this side of the city, that side of the city. We were all brought up that way. We've got.
Well, guess what? You know what? Diversity is now the buzzword.
It's not even diversity. It's like, it's just the river has always divided us, right? You're right. The bigger picture is, do you do that? So the community wants to have it, right? They need to have a grieving process as well. We're going to give them that 30 days. We're going to probably have a couple of meetings with the 2020 committee to get that value. That's part of what we have to do. And then we say, okay, here's our plan, and we lock down, the state government
I
and their
still
commitment.
think if you gutted that whole Roosevelt area, and even the PD and the city hall, and
Absolutely.
that is yours. You still have an economic plan that would be a wonderful
Absolutely.
driver.
And just quickly, we've already done. We're in the finalizing. We went out for a request for proposals for a public safety complex, because we know the first step, irregardless, to get out of City Hall is we need to build that. So we're looking at doing that. Value. So there are things.
I only
out
have a
there,
few
Dan.
seconds. How long will the recovery process take? Another week, I hope. That's it. You got to go forward, man.
Oh, absolutely. That's what the sign was yesterday. We're going forward. I'll sit down probably next week, talk to the ownership to see what their intent is on there, and we'll start the meetings with the governor and the Commerce and
Great
legislature.
effort. Sorry it didn't work out.
Listen, everything happens for a reason, Dan.
True. Don Grebien. Final word, and we come back. Alrighty, moving forward, the governor's race is still a hot commodity. Matt Brown, former Secretary of State, Democratic candidate, will be our guest here on the Friday program, so I hope you join us. See you tomorrow on the radio from 3 to 6 on WPRO. Thanks for watching. Good night.